Welcome into the Door Report. It is episode 206. We are recording on a Wednesday night, but this will be released on a Friday morning, the day before Auburn rolls into Nashville to face Vanderbilt. And we will get into the expectations for that and the hype and basically getting you guys to Memorial Gym. That's going to be our job heading into the weekend. But we are powered by Alaco Fine Wood Floors. As always, family owned and operated for more than 2 decades. Alaco Fine Wood Floors is Nashville and Middle Tennessee's choice for premium quality hardwood floors. Since 1995, Jimmy Alaco and his army of employees have embodied the approach of taking pride in one's craft and providing superior customer service, growing from a one-man shop to a team of 23 professionals. Sounds like the Door Report, guys, who share the founder's passion for quality craftsmanship and customer satisfaction. If you're interested in contacting them, you can find their headquarters at 2505 Winford Avenue out in Berry Hill, or you can give them a call at 615-356-0303, or find them on the web at alacofinewoodfloors.com. Guys, let's recap a couple more Vandy wins. Florida and South Carolina both go down, 4-game winning streak. And guys, honestly, the more I think about it, the more I realize why we had high expectations for this group. Like we're seeing what we always thought this team could be. And so, Will, I ask you, I'm going to ask you the same thing, Trevor. Are you back aboard, or are you still waiting at the dock to be picked up by Jerry Stackhouse and company?
That's a nuanced answer, Billy. I wish it was a simple yes or no. I do want to say that I'm happily eating crow, I think, as Trevor said. But clearly,
He's so good.
I want to put this out there. I do want to put this out there at the beginning before I go into some other things. But clearly, with that 57-point loss to Alabama, I'm not saying I agree with the strategy necessarily. And it doesn't excuse the post-game presser comments that really sent it over the edge. But Jerry Stackhouse clearly knew his team better than I did or this podcast did. So I think that we often have a lot of hot takes, especially me. I'll have very opinionated takes, but I was wrong on this one. And he knew what the team needed. They got embarrassed, and they have responded since and looked like the team that we expected going into the season. Billy, you mentioned it. But there's a reason that we were so critical and so angry after that 57-point loss to Alabama and the kind of nonchalant attitude and response from Jerry Stackhouse. There was a reason for that, because we didn't think this team was a team that should be losing to anyone by 57. It doesn't matter if Tyron Lawrence is on the bench and you have injuries. There's just a level of performance you expected out of kind of, I would say, a veteran-laden team, even if it is some guys transferring in. This is definitely the most experienced team Jerry Stackhouse has had during his tenure, and you're finally seeing it kind of gel and mesh together. So, Trevor, I'm not fully back on board, but I'm certainly off the fire Stackhouse train. He has a chance over the next 5 games remaining on the schedule to pull me back on board. I'm not on the We Back Stack train, and I'm also not on the fire Stackhouse train. I'm kind of right back to where I was about 10 games ago, just kind of waiting and seeing how the rest of this season plays out. May have jumped the gun just a little bit on the fire Stackhouse, but I'm certainly not one of those people that is saying like everything is hunky-dory sitting at 14-12. I mean, This team was expected to be in a better spot than they are right now. And unless they continue to play like this down the remaining stretch of the season, you're just going to be looking at overall a disappointing season and a return to the NIT. So there's still more work to be done. But this 4-game win streak, I mean, I think it's brought back in a lot of fans that were close to the edge there at the end, Trevor. I don't know how you feel.
I mean, here's the thing. My from years of watching and loving Vanderbilt athletics, I'm sorry, my camera just shifted again because my cat is acting like a psycho right now. From years of loving and cheering for Vanderbilt athletics, it has done a tremendous toll on my brain. With that being said, whenever it comes to my fan takes, which are like 99% of my takes, I'm not the most logical. So am I back on? I mean,
It's a tough answer.
Okay.
Define back on. That's the tougher part of that.
I'll say this. I'll be at Memorial on Saturday with bloodlust. That's my answer. Is I will be in Memorial and I will have violent intentions. I will have a craving for blood and flesh, and particularly that being Bruce Pearl. So am I back? I don't know. Ask me after Saturday and I'll tell you. With that being said, I totally agree, Will, with your Jerry Stackhouse take. Am I on the fire, Jerry? I don't know. Ask me at the end of the season. Am I on the I back, Jerry? I don't know. Ask me at the end of the season. Yeah. I tell you what, there's really only two ways I'll go. It'll either be like, I'll be, get him out of here, or I'll be like, bring him back. I back Stack. That is, at the end of the season, I will not be on the edge. I will be hard-lined one or the other. And that solely depends on if Vanderbilt makes the NCAA tournament. If they make the NIT, I'm sorry, I want them out. Or if they even don't make the postseason, I want them out. But if they make the tournament, I'll gladly give him another year.
I'll say
we
this,
said
guys.
5-2 last pod. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Billy.
Go ahead.
We said 5-2 in this last 7-game stretch, and so I think that's what we're trying to hit at the beginning. Is we're thrilled with the 4-game win streak, and that had to happen.
I'm ecstatic.
So not to diminish that, but this is what had to happen to bring at least me and Trevor back on a little bit away from the fire Stackhouse. So this is great.
You're back to surface level.
But you've dug yourself back up to kind of even ground or just a foot below ground now. And now it's time. Yeah, now it's time to do the real work. So there's a lot of basketball to be played. I
absolutely agree.
And a lot of things to be decided in an absolutely jam-packed SEC in this last stretch.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
Tennessee, we're recording after they just beat Alabama. So literally, guys, anything can happen. Not just in the SEC, but in college basketball. That's why Vanderbilt was able to upset Tennessee at home. They can beat Auburn at home. They can go to Rupp and beat Kentucky. I mean, it's insane. This is one of the more wild college basketball seasons. I think it fits perfectly with where Vanderbilt's at, because the teams losing at the top, any team losing in the top 25 helps Vanderbilt. And so, we'll get to that down the road and what it means, where Vanderbilt's at right now and what that means down the road for this season. But guys, I'll say this before we get to more of the Florida and South Carolina recap. Coach Stackhouse isn't fighting for his job anymore. I'll say that. Now, I know, Trevor, you said after the season, if it's an NIT berth, you're probably not on board. But I think from a bird's eye view, 2 weeks ago, he was fighting for his job. I think he might have told you that. The way they played against Tennessee, they played like chickens with their heads cut off. I mean, they played amazing basketball, and they were, the defensive effort was phenomenal. They did the same down in Gainesville. So there's almost been a focus and a renewed, sort of aggression and intensity that we haven't seen all season. So I'll say that. That's as far as I'll go. I think a lot of people are still sort of waiting, like you said, Will. What happens Saturday night against Auburn? What happens? Are you able to go take care of business on the road against LSU? And are you able to beat Florida at home? So there's more validation that, Stack said we need to validate this. They're not done validating. Say you go, how many games they got left, Will? 5, including Auburn?
5.
Okay. So say you go 3-2. I don't know if I don't know if that's going to cut it for a lot of Vandy fans in their perception. It wouldn't cut it.
That gives you an opportunity. It gives you an opportunity in the SEC tournament.
Right. You still have the SEC tournament.
Guarantees you a winning record in conference, which would be a step forward. So, Billy, I think you hit the nail on the head with the no longer fighting for his job. I think that is what he's accomplished the last 4 games. If he has the full support of the fan base through the offseason, that will be determined in the last 5 games. So he got his butt off the hot seat, but it's still a little warm. It's
insane the power of that Tennessee game. They had no business winning that. I'm not saying they played bad, but Tennessee had that game. Let's admit it. Vanderbilt did what they needed to do to win. They hit the shot to win it. But looking back at it now, I think even 2 years from now, say Stackhouse makes the tournament next year, we'll be looking back at that game saying that might have just saved his job, because that totally changed the perception of the season. It was a springboard. It was a springboard to what's happening now. So I think we could talk about that Tennessee win forever, but we got a Florida game to talk about, South Carolina to talk about, and an Auburn game to preview. Before we do that, though, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at @door_report and Instagram, door.report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our podcast is available on Anchor, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcast. And while you're at it, give our podcast 5 stars and a review on iTunes. All right, let's get to the Florida and South Carolina recap and the Auburn preview. All right, guys, we got a couple games to recap. I was hoping to maybe get one in Monday night after Florida, but with Vanderbilt playing Tuesday, we didn't have enough time to do that. But let's kind of go Florida, then South Carolina. If you guys are able to do that. I know we got to look back at Florida, but the wins are, let's face it, to a point we thought they were going to be rarefied air in the SEC, at least the beginning of that stretch when Vanderbilt was struggling. But first 4-game win streak in SEC play since 2017. So that's a stat that was popped up on graphics everywhere down the stretch of that Florida game. Guys, probably the most improbable turnaround from any Vanderbilt basketball team in my lifetime. I mean, that's the last 22, 23 years. So, you look at it and what a 4-game winning streak can do. It sort of puts a stamp on your team saying the culture is there. You're going in the right direction. And guys, it's a perfect example of the saying, Will and Trevor, winning cures all. I mean, it's unbelievable what a 4-game winning streak can do. Everything is in front of them. So going back to that Florida game, obviously Liam Robbins was the story. 32 points, 10 rebounds. I mean, he's a brand new man. I mean, the guy, he was playing well at the beginning of the season, and I think we always knew he was the guy that had to play well if Vanderbilt wanted to win games. But what has gotten into him? I mean, he got hurt, and he came back quicker than any of us thought. And all of a sudden, guys, he's hitting shots that I mean, he's stepping back, hitting 30-foot threes. He's picking and popping, hitting 15-foot jump shots. I mean, his game has elevated in the span of 2 weeks. That I don't think I would have guessed it would. So, Will, I say this because with Liam Robbins, he's playing as well as any big man in the country, not just the SEC. I think he's playing better than Sheboy. That's why he was SEC Player of the Week. I mean, the guy's been dominating. He's a perfect guy to run your offense around. So, Will, with him playing this well, I think they can beat anybody. I think both of you guys would agree, especially anybody that's left on their schedule. So, you look at what he's done. I can't believe a lot of shots. I'm like, what just happened? Like, how did he just hit that?
Well, I don't know if it's been played up enough. I know he won SEC Player of the Week, but Liam Robbins won the battle against Colin Castleton, who's probably the top big man NBA prospect. I would say
I didn't
higher
see
than
that coming.
just off pure size and game. I would say he's probably going to be drafted higher than Oscar Sheboy. That could be wrong. But Liam Robbins ate his lunch. He dominated him. He was the better player. He had 4 blocks, 32 points, 10 rebounds. Colin Castleton put up numbers as well, 25 points. He had 11 rebounds as well, 2 blocks. But if you watch that game, Liam outplayed Colin Castleton. And a guy that has been overlooked a little bit, I think he's getting credit now. But another guy that's elevated his play alongside Liam Robbins is Ezra Manjon. He's been playing out of his mind. He had 8 assists in that Florida game, playing under control, finding the open man, and that pick and roll, pick and pop, and getting the Vanderbilt team into their offense. He seems to be making the right decision. This offense is slowed down for him a lot more than it looked like it did at the beginning of the season. I think one of the announcers, I can't remember who it was, and even if it was the Florida or the South Carolina game, but he said that he had a Vanderbilt game earlier in the season and was concerned about the point guard play with Ezra Manjon. And seeing him play now, at this point in the season, he's a completely different player and looks like he has developed a complete control of this offense. So Tyron Lawrence only had 4 points in the Florida game.
That's the thing.
And this team was still able to put up 88 points.
I was going to say, Will, Tyron, he played well against Tennessee, but Vandy's been doing all this with Tyron being relatively quiet. I mean, I think he had 11 against South Carolina. He had that dunk, but that's what's impressive too, Will. I mean, Tyron's one of your best players, but you've got Ezra and Liam playing at such a high level. That's taken some pressure off Tyron.
Well, there's so many things to be excited about, and I know this might be jumping ahead to the South Carolina game, but I don't feel like Vanderbilt really shot the ball well or played particularly crisp. They rebounded the ball extremely well, played very hard, executed, had open looks, took good open looks, but they really didn't play that well, and they dominated South Carolina pretty much
Yeah.
from beginning to end. And I think
Yup.
that was just as much of a statement is beating Florida or beating Tennessee or going on this 4-game win streak, including that Ole Miss game. I think being able to come out, have your C game, but play hard and dominate an inferior opponent, I think that said more to me about the state of the program under Jerry Stackhouse than anything, than winning a few games. It's being able to roll out there against a team you should beat, not play your best, but that doesn't affect you. You still come out and beat the shit out of them. That's something to build on, and that's what good teams do. I'm not saying great teams, but that's what good teams do. And I don't think 10 games ago that Vanderbilt beat South Carolina the way that they did. They absolutely out-physicaled. I hate that phrase, but they out-physicaled South Carolina. South Carolina was, for whatever reason, swapping in and out of zone defense, which just exacerbated the rebounding issue. I don't understand that. That's why
they're awful. They're horrific.
yeah, they're very bad.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that their coach's cure to giving up offensive rebounds to Vanderbilt was for South Carolina to switch to a 1-3-1 zone on the defensive end, which is literally the hardest defense to rebound out of in all of basketball. So absolutely brilliant move by South Carolina to put your team in a horrendous situation against a team that they're already outsized against. But great job by Vanderbilt capitalizing on that. And if they would have been on like they were in the Florida game, in the South Carolina game, in the Florida game, they shot over 50% from three. They would have beat that South Carolina team by 40 because the looks they were getting against South Carolina were so much better than the looks they were getting against Florida. So I think that is something to build on. I know we got a little bit ahead there, but just as much as the win over a higher ranked Florida team and all the net rankings but being able to go out there and beat a bad team on the road, that says a lot to me as well. I don't know how you feel about that, Trevor.
Well, and two, on the road in a gym that has given you fits for a lot of years now.
Yeah. First
I do
win
wanna
in Gainesville in like 10 or 11 years or I
Mhm.
don't know, 10 or 11
It's
games, I think.
something insane. But Will, I want to once again just on the same wavelength. Like we said about Liam Robbins, he's playing out of his mind. There's very, very few players in all of college basketball who are playing at a higher level than him. And whenever Liam Robbins is on his game, Vanderbilt can beat anybody. It's just a fact. He's too talented down low. And the fact that he has somehow figured out how to shoot from beyond the three. I mean, the way that
his percentage is unreal.
People want to get on Colin Castleton's back, but like he can't stretch the floor like Liam can.
No, he doesn't
And
shoot.
with Colin Castleton, like bang down low, like be a traditional big man. He cannot keep up with somebody like Liam on the perimeter. And I'm not sure if there's another big who can, to be quite frank. So whenever Liam is playing his best basketball, Vanderbilt is very good. But Will, I want to hammer on something that you said, particularly in the Florida game. He's not going to show up in the stat sheet a ton, but Ezra Manjon has, like you guys have said, has figured out this offense, and his style of play works very well with Vanderbilt shooters. The fact that him crashing the boards and driving hard, like we saw in the Tennessee game, gives so many open looks to the shooters. And whenever he crashes, not only does that free the shooters, but then I think we saw it a ton against Florida. Castleton or whoever the big is that's on Liam, he has to come off and play help defense. Mm-hmm. So now you have a guy who's faster and smaller than your big, already 2 steps ahead of you on the boards. But if he wants to dish it out, there's 3 or 4 guys who can shoot from anywhere on the court. So I think Ezra Manjon right now is playing incredible basketball. I think for a lot of games, he's really been an unsung hero for Vanderbilt. I think just him being on the court makes Vanderbilt a more dangerous basketball team. the way he distributes, the way he crashes. He just plays smart basketball. He's not gonna really mess up. He's not gonna play that. And I get it. I will be forever grateful for Scottie Pippen Jr. But he's not gonna play that ISO ball to where it's him one-on-one hero ball to where he might turn it over 4 or 5 times. You know what I mean? He's gonna be safe. He's gonna be smart. And I think that's what Vanderbilt has to do from here on out to win games. And I think they've realized that.
Yeah, you mentioned taking care. You mentioned not turning the ball over, Trevor. I want to throw this in here. Aria Gerson had a great number stat on Twitter. She said during SEC play, Vanderbilt has turned the ball over less than any other SEC team, and it's not close. They've turned it over nearly 14% of possessions. Next is Missouri at 15%. And I saw you like that tweet too. Well, that is something that I think not a lot of people are talking about. This team is playing very smart basketball. They're taking care of the ball. They're getting to the free throw line. They're doing everything that, we always talk about. This will win you the game. Take care of the ball, get to the free throw line, make your free throws. You'll have a shot at every game. And Will, that's what they're doing. It's like Stack has hammered home on, okay, we're going to play our best players, but here's what we got to do to win the game. It's almost like, at the beginning of the season, you'd look back in the box score and, they'd get to the line a lot, but there would be a 60%, from the free throw line, and they would have 15, 16 turnovers. And we're like, that's why you lost the game. They're playing smart basketball, Will, against good competition too. Like Tennessee and Florida. I know we talked about Florida in the preview. That Florida win, I think, might go underrated, but that was a top 40, top 50 net and KenPom team, I think. And you beat them at
43.
home.
They were 43 net team going into that game.
Yeah. So, you're playing smart basketball. And, guys, Trey Thomas is another guy that shot the lights out against Florida. And, I know that that love-hate relationship continues, but I think when Ezra's on the floor and you've got Liam attracts a lot of attention. You get Ezra to get inside the lane, you've got Trey wide open. He's started last couple games, he's hitting at a better clip. And we talked about before the season he would go on these cold streak of games. That's what Miles Studi is on right now. So, Will, I think Vandy fans should be happy that Trey Thomas is on right now while Studi really hasn't done anything.
That's a great point.
Yeah, Studi got going a little bit at the end of that South Carolina game.
A little bit, yeah.
I think one of the announcers said, don't let him get hot, because he hit 1 3, and then he hit one out of the corner, and he immediately shot it and turned around, and it almost didn't even touch the net. He just knew it straight out of his hand, and sometimes that's all it takes is a shooter just needs to see one go through the rim. And the best example of how off Studi is, for whatever reason, is he banked in a straightaway 3 at the beginning of the game. And the phrase shooter
it almost
long,
doesn't feel good.
Yeah, shooter long, nothing wrong. In that situation, there was something wrong, because he didn't hit back iron. That thing was at least 1.5 feet too far, but
he didn't call backward.
Something to do with the lineups. You mentioned Trey Thomas having shooters around. So I've caved, as I always do at this time of the year, and I bought the KenPom annual subscription for $20.
Boom.
Well worth it, by the way. Shout out to the KenPom guys, because I had noticed something in recent games about the lineup kind of tightening and rotations becoming a little different. And they always do a great job of charting that. And it was pretty interesting. And I actually went through and kind of double checked this myself in an Excel spreadsheet, and I'll go through that. But in the last 5 games, and this includes that bad loss, but Vanderbilt has only used one lineup over 6% of minutes in the last 5 games. And they've used it 23.7%, so almost a quarter of the games, with no other lineup combination being above 6%. That lineup is Ezra Manjon, Trey Thomas, Tyron Lawrence, Miles Studi, and Liam Robbins.
Yep.
Right there. You have Trey Thomas, Miles Studi as the shooters. I know Miles Studi has been off, but they have to guard him like a shooter. Trey Thomas, he's been off, but they have to guard him like a shooter. Now you have Tyron Lawrence more consistently knocking down and being willing to shoot that outside jumper. So now they have to guard him as a shooter. Liam Robbins is more than willing now to pick and pop 3, 4, 5 times a game and take a 3. They have to guard him at the perimeter. So there's only one guy on the court now that they don't have to guard outside the 3-point line, and that's Ezra Manjon. So that is allowing that pick and roll action and pick and pop action to work, because you have actual threats outside the 3-point line and not just one, but multiple on the court at the same time. So that paint is so much more open for Ezra Manjon to drive. You're not seeing that third guy over to help in the pick and roll action because they have to stay relatively close to those shooters. So clearly there has been a change in how Stack has evaluated this lineup, because at first I went, whoa, that's a high percentage of that lineup being used. But over the last 4 games, compared to their season average, the 3 players that have seen the highest increase in their minutes on this 4-game win streak are Liam Robbins, Tyron Lawrence, and Ezra Manjon. Liam Robbins has increased his minutes played based on the season average by 25%. So he's playing 25% more minutes in the last 4 games than he was previously. Tyron Lawrence is playing 21.3% more minutes than his season average. And Ezra Manjon is playing 15.5% more minutes than his season average. And notably, the 3 guys / 4 guys that have seen the largest decrease in their minutes have been Ansong, Shelby, Lewis, and QMB. So those have been the largest decreases in minutes that you've seen, with Ansong losing about 80% of his minutes over the last 4 games. So what that tells me is there's been an emphasis on scoring. I think Shelby and Lewis are just due to the tightening and restriction of this rotation as the season goes on, but clearly Ansong and QMB don't provide scoring on the offensive end. Great effort guys, defensive guys, length, but they're not scorers. And Stack has noticed that this team just needs to put the ball in the hole. And clearly he's adjusted his lineup. So shout out to Stack, credit where credit is due. He's adjusted lineups. That was my number one criticism outside of post-game comments, was his lineups didn't make any sense and there wasn't enough offense on the court to ever win consistently. He seems to have corrected that. So as this team continues to roll, just keep doing what is working. Don't overcomplicate it. You're going to have an off shooting night at some point in one of these next 5 games. Just keep shooting, because I'll let you guys in on a secret. The team that scores more points wins the game. Scoring
Make it true.
Scoring
Make it
points,
true.
more importantly, scoring more points than the opponent can score is the number one key to winning basketball games, not preventing the opponent from scoring. So just to let you guys in on a little secret there, Billy and Trevor.
That's a big brain take right there. That's awesome. That's the takes you get with the door report. But guys, what you're seeing is depth. I mean, Will, we talked about this and Trevor in the preview that, okay, this is the first time Stackhouse is able to tout some of the depth he has. And, I know we went back and forth on, he called this team experienced, then he called this team young. That happened in the past. We've already talked about that. But there is depth, and there always has been. Now, whether it's quality depth, SEC-wise, that might be up for debate. But you look at the bench, after that starting 5 you mentioned, Will, you start to look at a guy like Colin Smith. Lee Dort, even though he's not healthy, but when he's healthy, he's another guy you'll have. Paul Lewis, I think, has played pretty well, pretty solid. He's come in, he's hit big shots in big spots. And then if you start Studi, you got Trey Thomas on the bench. And guys, I wanted to say this also about Trey. He's been getting inside the paint, and the little floater game also has evolved a little bit. So I know we've talked a lot about Trey, but he's a veteran guy. He's smart. He has liabilities that are obvious, but I think Stack likes him because he is smart. He's played a lot of basketball. Stack has put emphasis on that recently. Will, you mentioned scoring, but a common theme with those guys, Liam has played a ton of basketball and has developed. Ezra Manjon has played a ton of basketball. Tyron Lawrence, Miles Studi, those guys are experienced. They've went through highs and lows at the SEC level. So depth. And we're I think fans around the SEC, not just Vandy fans, are realizing, okay, this Vandy team has some depth. They've got several pieces that you can win with at this level. So South Carolina and Florida. Trevor, did you have anything else on those 2 wins?
Not on those 2 wins in particular. I will say, both you guys brought up a great point. You in particular, Will, to where, and you Billy, you brought it up too, to where the past couple games, Tyron was really hot, sort of cooled off a little bit. Studi's in a cold streak right now. Like you said, Will, there's going to come a game to where these guys just don't hit shots. I mean, as frustrating as that is, it's easy to say now whenever it's not a game, but I mean, that's just basketball. Like There's nothing else to say. But there will come a day, hopefully within the next couple of games, maybe Saturday, to where all your guys are hitting. Maybe not all of your guys, but 3 out of 4 of them are hitting. And if you can get Liam, Tyron, Jordan maybe in the game.
Jordan, yeah, he's a guy we haven't even mentioned yet.
Jordan, poor guy, had a pretty rough game. South Carolina.
He's still banged up.
Yes,
he hasn't played that poorly, but he's shot poorly. Like really, a lot of makeable looks, and especially from the outside. If he can get it going, I mean, this team would almost become unstoppable.
Guys, if you could get 3 or 4 guys going at once. I mean, and I'm not even sure you have to go the whole game, but if you can get like a consistent, like 5-6 minute period to where you have them firing on all cylinders, I don't know how many teams can really keep up with that. Now, every basketball team says that, of course, but I mean, just with the shooters they have, with the shooters and with Liam Robbins arguably playing some of the best basketball in the nation, I don't think anybody left on the schedule can keep up with that.
If they play, and especially if Liam shoots how he did at the beginning of the Florida game, and how that team started out, I mean, they're going to be a tough out. And I hate the phrase "nobody wants to play this team." That's like my least favorite phrase on the planet.
It's so true now.
Basketball is a momentum sport. Basketball is a momentum and confidence sport, and this team right now has confidence for the first time this season. And a team with confidence that has some guys that can heat up like a microwave, that's dangerous.
That's a great word, Will, confidence. And we haven't talked a lot about it. And I think coming into the season, we knew this team, they should have confidence. They've played a lot of basketball. They've got guys like Liam and Tyron who have played in the SEC a lot of minutes. But, you know, we haven't talked about the confidence a lot right now. I mean, that Tennessee win did wonders. Tyron hits the game-winning shot. It's almost like that was the moment that clicked and said, okay, we can beat anybody, no matter whether we're on our home floor or not, because they went on the road and beat a Florida team that we kept saying, validate it right here. They did. I mean, I don't know if you could say they dominated Florida, but they really had control. It felt like they were in control of that game. I will say this, guys, defense has to improve. I know they have improved over the past, 4 or 5 games, but if they want to beat Auburn and if they want to go to Rupp and beat Kentucky and even Mississippi State, they've got to hunker down defensively because they're still statistically a bad defensive team. I mean, I think we can agree on that. It hasn't hurt them. That's the thing, though. They've played so well offensively and they haven't turned the ball over that defense hasn't been a glaring issue. But Auburn, I think this Saturday, if you struggle and let Auburn get loose offensively because they can, that's when we might see, okay, that it might be a problem because it hasn't really been a problem up until maybe the Auburn game. We may see that. But guys, I think a lot of this is they have learned how to win over the last couple of years. We saw games last year getting into that postseason play where you had games at home where they learned how to win. I think they're at that point now where they're going to do what it takes to win, whether it's Liam getting a bucket, Ezra penetrating, kicking it out to Tyron or Miles or Trey, whatever it takes to win a game. That's what we're realizing this team is going to do, I think. So that's where it's at, confidence and winning plays. Well, we haven't been able to say that about a Stackhouse coach team since this point in the season. And even last year, I think at times with Scotty, you could say that, but that killer instinct, it feels like it's there and it's developing within this team. I mean, we talked about that in the football season. We said this team, they've got that, not just one punch to the gut, but against Florida, that was 2 or 3 knockout blows last year where you said, okay, they have taken control of the game. That's what they did on the road against Florida. They, of course, did that against South Carolina, guys. So killer instinct and confidence, that'll win you some games.
Yep. That'll win you some games. And I don't know if you want to transition over to the Auburn preview. But this Auburn team is just
all of a sudden you sound a little raspy, Will, with your mic. I'm not sure if anything was disconnected or not.
I've not done anything. How am I sounding now?
Do you notice that, Trevor?
Yeah, it sounds like he's underwater.
Okay, sick. Well, I have no idea. I haven't done it.
Did your cord unplug or something?
How do I sound now?
It's the same. It's really weird. I don't know. I'll edit this out, of course. Maybe your mic disconnected or something.
How about now?
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Beautiful.
And for some reason, it switched to my AirPods. I have no idea why, but
Okay. Continue with what you're saying if you remember it.
yeah, this Auburn team. I don't know if we switched over to the Auburn preview, but
Let's do it.
They're an interesting matchup for Vanderbilt. There's no lines out yet, but just a reminder: Vanderbilt was a 9.5-point underdog against Florida on the road. So, and then they
Which
were
was crazy.
Yeah, they were a 5.5-point favorite, I think, over South Carolina. They'll be an underdog against this Auburn team. They're sitting at 18th in Ken Palm. They've struggled. They've lost 3 of the last 4, but 3 of those last 4 were against Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Alabama. And every single deep analytical stat that is out there, Auburn is a top 10 or 15 defensive team, especially at defending the 3 ball. Honestly, their 2-point percentage is pretty good as well. They're 30th in the country at defending 2-point shot percentage, 4th in the country against the 3. So this is a challenge for this Vanderbilt team coming off some wins against more beatable opponents. I know they upset number 6 Tennessee, but coming off some more beatable opponents, this is an NCAA tournament team. This is a 5, 6, 7 seed. I don't know exactly where they will end up, but this Auburn team would put Vanderbilt in the conversation as a legitimate NCAA tournament bubble team, or they'll kind of fade back into the background and have to make another run here at the end of the season. But this game is a huge opportunity to change the national narrative about Vanderbilt just being like, oh, they've won 4 straight games. Isn't that awesome for Jerry? To like, oh, this team's actually like winning a lot, and they're kind of forcing themselves through the front door of this NCAA tournament conversation when everybody, including me, had pretty much counted them out. So this game against Auburn is a huge opportunity, but I think people get blinded oftentimes in basketball by, oh, it's just another, in-conference game. Like, not all in-conference games are created equal, even in this very crowded middle of the SEC. This Auburn team is better than Florida. They're definitely better than South Carolina and Ole Miss. So this is a step up in competition to me. It is at home. The energy is going to be great, but this team's going to have to play their best. If they come out and miss open shots like they did against South Carolina, they're not going to have a 15-2 lead against this Auburn team. It's just not going to happen. You can't roll out with your C game against Auburn. You will get beat and embarrassed at home. So I know this team knows that. I mean, they don't need to be reminded of that. They'll be hyper focused. The energy is going to be great, but Bruce Pearl, he's back. Trevor, I know you're fired up.
He's back.
That.
Hey, real quick though.
Yes.
Real quick. I love the segue. Well, got to get to a sponsor before we preview Auburn. Primus Bank with Kennedy Mathis, loan officer, NMLS number 217-9364. Kennedy has a passion for assisting families and realizing their dreams of home ownership. Contact Kennedy at 931-224-7684 or email him at kennedy.mathis@primusbank.com. You can apply for a mortgage on that website. Primus Mortgage has a solution for you: cash out refinance, first-time home buyer, rental properties, USDA loan, VA loan, vacation, and second home. Apply today again at primusbank.com or call 931-224-7687. We will get to Byram's Betting Corner, brought to you by Pickett, at the end of this episode. But Trevor, I'll leave it to you. Bruce Pearl, when he was at Tennessee, he didn't like coming to Memorial Gym, and I guarantee you his Auburn bunch,
stupid orange jacket too,
including Bruce Pearl and that coaching staff, they're not looking forward to this matchup.
Nope. Here's the thing though about this Auburn team, and I know this might be a lazy take. Bruce Pearl is a great equalizer. And he is a really, really good basketball coach if you are unfamiliar with college basketball. Elite, some would say. I think Auburn knows that they're backed into a corner right now, and they gotta come out swinging. On the flip side, though, you have a Vanderbilt team that is just as backed into a corner, maybe more so.
Yeah.
Liam Robbins is going to have I don't want to say his game of the season, because that Florida game was something beautiful. Liam Robbins is going to have to be not just efficient in the paint. He's going to have to take over, which that makes me feel I'm a little bit comfortable about that because, like you said, with the killer instinct, it's like Liam has like his third eye has opened up and he realized that nobody can stop him. Like it's literally like someone gave him like the magic juice and he's just like, oh my god, like I'm
Mike's
literally
secret stuff.
they gave him Mike's secret stuff or like the like Booker's juice, and they were like, he realized he's like, oh my god, he's like, nobody can stop me. If Liam Robbins takes over this ball game and stays out of foul trouble, I will say
That's a key.
if he takes over this game and is not in foul trouble, Vanderbilt will win. I say that because Memorial's going to be rocking, and I think you have a basketball team that knows they're up against the wall and you can't turn around and run. So you just got to fight your way out. Liam's going to have a great game. Jordan, I know he's hurt. These are the type of games that we were hoping that Jordan would really step up and come into this season. When Jerry took him to SEC Media Days, he sat on that desk and said, this is Jordan's team. He's the guy. I told him before it wasn't his time yet. Now's his time. I think Jordan Wright's going to have a game. I think you're going to have a game out of Liam, and I think Jordan is just going to have to awaken from some slumber or just fight.
You said you didn't want to have Liam to have his game of the year because he had that Jordan Wright. This would be the time.
This is the Jordan Wright.
This is Jordan Wright takeover.
And holy hell, if he's not due. As a guy that just plays his ass off, has played through injuries, he is due to have a game where those outside shots are falling. I mean, he's been a pretty solid shooter his entire career. And he's one of those guys that falls in, and I don't mean this as hate, because he is playing through injury, and you can see he's not 100%, at least in the back of his mind, a little bit scared to re-injure himself. But I'm afraid he falls into that category of, is he a jack of all trades or is he a master of none? And right now, because he's not hitting shots, he is rebounding the ball extremely well. So I want to point that out.
And defending.
Yes.
Yeah, he's defending at a very high level. If you notice, they put him on the team's best offensive player most times, best guard. So he's a guy. I feel like Jordan is so due that it's almost scary when he comes out and plays at his highest level down the stretch of this season. It's like that's the final. You got your checklist. Everything is checked off other than Jordan Wright right now.
Infinity Stones, and you've got Liam playing at a high level, Ezra's playing at a high level, Tyron's playing at a high level, and you just need the last couple, which are Miles Studi to start hitting shots, and you need Jordan Wright to become full.
Everyone to assemble.
Then you have all five, and if you add in Trey Thomas starting to knock down outside jumpers and Colin Smith,
icing on the cake,
as a true freshman continuing to knock down big shots. I mean, this team is starting to take the shape we expected them to take by about game 8 this season. It's taken them a while. They've dug themselves a hole, but they have an opportunity to dig out. And maybe that's what Stack realized, and maybe I'm giving too much credit, but this team has turned it around at literally the last moment that you could possibly turn around this season. One more bad loss, and the season is shot and completely over. So the timing has been miraculous. You couldn't write a script with better timing on this turnaround.
Here is a little comp for Jordan Wright, and I think we're going to have this sort of performance from him Saturday. A few years ago, there was a man who oftentimes he could shoot the lights out of the building, he could drive, but sometimes he went cold. But even when he went cold, he gave you 110% effort, and he was an elite defender. And he had his best games and big moments late in the season, and he would take over games like you've never seen before. Jordan Wright needs to have a Jeff Taylor game.
I like the comparison.
He needs to have a Jeff Taylor game to where, like you said, Will, is he a jack of all trades or is he a master of none? When Jordan is on his game, he's a great defender. He can drive to the hoop. He can shoot. Who do you put on him? When Jordan Wright is on his game and is playing his best basketball, I don't even know if I would say his best. If he's just consistent, he's really hard to stop. And for this team to have success and to make a really deep run, I think starting Saturday, you're going to have to see Jordan Wright wake up. And like we all hammered on, I know the injuries, but he's going to have to really get it going. And if he can get it going in this moment, then I think this Vanderbilt team could get really sneaky. You might make the argument they're sneaky now. I think if Jordan gets going, they're no longer sneaky. I think they're a really dangerous team.
He's the X factor.
I mean, if the lineup, just the lineup and rotations, the main lineup, like I mentioned, that they had been using Ezra Manjon, Trey Thomas, Tyron Lawrence, Miles Studi, Liam Robbins. If you can add Jordan Wright in there and have the lineup of Ezra Manjon, Tyron Lawrence, Jordan Wright, Colin Smith, or Miles Studi and Liam Robbins, that is a Swiss Army knife you can inject that Jordan Wright can play anywhere from the 2 to the 4. And you kind of have that a little bit. Granted, he's a little more limited defensively, but Miles Studi can play the 3 or the 4. So, and Colin Smith can play the 3 or the 4. So you have a lot of, and Trey Thomas, the 1 or the 2. So these lineups have a lot of versatility. And finally, you're getting the best, most talented lineups consistently on the floor at the same time with enough scoring to be successful. And I think that's what has been so frustrating early in the season is the lineups that we wanted to see were right in your face, and you're finally seeing them now. And holy shit, the team's winning. It's amazing.
What a concept.
Lineups with 2-3 guys with Ezra Manjon, Emmanuel Ansong, and QMB on the court all at the same time. No shit, you're having trouble scoring. 3 of those guys can't hit a jumper outside of 10 feet at higher than a 40% clip. You're going to struggle if you don't have scorers on the court. Thank God Stack has realized that, and hopefully it continues. But Jordan Wright, if he gets going, it creates 3-4 more different lineup combinations that allow Ezra Manjon to be successful. Because I don't think Ezra Manjon, I think he can be called a scorer because he can drive the ball really well and finishes, using the rim as protection against bigger defenders. He's able to finish really consistently and seems to always make really good decisions, but he's not a shooter. So you have to make up for that part of his game on the offensive end by spreading out the court more. And right now, Jordan Wright is the last piece to spreading out the defense because he had open looks in the last couple games, been unable to knock them down. And you have noticed teams kind of backing away and using his guys more of a help guy, which is forced Jordan Wright to drive in, which I don't know if necessarily all he wants to do is drive in and body up against big opponents with his injuries, but he's got to knock down some jumpers from the outside, like you mentioned, Trevor, in this Auburn game.
And if he does, Vanderbilt wins this game Saturday night. If Jordan Wright plays well, Vanderbilt beats Auburn. And guys, this game, this is the game for Vandy. They beat Auburn. The next toughest game is at Kentucky because you already showed you can beat Florida. Mississippi State will be tough, but Will, you said it. Auburn has lost 5 of their last 7 games. They're not necessarily playing great basketball. I know they just dominated Missouri. They killed Missouri at home. They got some really good guards. Wendell Green and Johnny Broom. They're both averaging 14 points a game. They've also got KD Johnson. So their guards are as good as anybody in the SEC. Very athletic team. They're similar to Alabama, not as much depth, but the way they like to get out and run and defend you at a high level, they are similar to Alabama. So I think Vanderbilt has a little bit of a blueprint and a nice scouting report on them. They've struggled on the road, guys. They're not a good road team. They're 4-5 in road games this season. And they've lost to some bad teams on the road. And so in Vanderbilt, they're playing at an elite level right now. Auburn, I told you, Trev, they're not looking forward to this matchup. They're looking at this matchup saying, "No, God, we got to play Vanderbilt in Memorial in probably a loud."
It's an annoying matchup.
Yeah, it just is.
Yeah.
And that's a game that Vanderbilt historically.
It's like that gnat in your face that you keep swatting at. That's Vanderbilt to this Auburn team right now.
Well, other teams, they also recognize, I don't care where they're ranked in KenPom. Vanderbilt has more talent on their roster. They are a more talented team than the 90th ranked team in the country with just talent. And I think that has been the case for many years because the announcers mentioned it during the South Carolina game. They said something like, I think many fans would be shocked to know that Vanderbilt has 6 players in the NBA, not even including Scottie Pippen Jr., who's doing work, on and off the squad for the Lakers. And that's just how it has felt, is like you look at the roster. This team is an NCAA tournament team. And I've said that since before the first basket of this entire season, and that was the expectation. And now that it's finally coming together, everybody is amazed. And I just have to keep blocking from my mind the sunk cost of how the hell is this team 14-12? Mm-hmm. How is this team sitting with 12 losses, and how are they sitting with a losing record 3 games ago? That's still a head scratcher to me. I don't understand how this team has had some of the performances they have had. Granted, right now, I think they still have the toughest in-conference schedule in the whole SEC, based on previous matchups, which that'll get a little easier during these last 5 games. But I don't know if it's matchup, schedule, just needing a fire lit under their ass. But this is not the same team we were watching 10 games ago, or even 6 games ago. I'm not even counting that Alabama game. 6 games ago, this team is different. Even how they're winning. And I know the Tennessee game is just because of a made shot, and a lot of this is just they were hitting shots. But a lot of that is what basketball is. It is just if your shots are falling or not, and it's a momentum sport. It's a sport of runs and streaks, and being able to prevent streaks from the opponents, not just within the game, but from game to game and carrying over momentum. And right now, Vanderbilt, for whatever reason, is carrying the good energy from game to game and was able to block out the bad energy, which, I brought quite a bit of it from the outside, but the bad energy after that Alabama debacle. So I just can't say enough how crazy it is how we are talking about this team compared to where we were 2 weeks ago.
It's insane. And guys, you might ask, the last time Vanderbilt beat Auburn at home, January 4th, 2017, they pummeled Auburn 80-61, led by 33 points and 7 threes from Matthew Fisher-Davis. So Fisher-Davis went off.
I miss him.
Friend of the pod.
Oh yeah, I have a feeling.
Close personal friend of the pod.
I have a feeling Miles Studi could have a massive game, a Matthew Fisher-Davis type performance. I mean, he's due as well. There's guys. It's crazy to say. There's guys that are due on this roster. I mean, Studi, Jordan Wright, I guess you could say Colin Smith, sort of, but you've seen it from those guys, but as of late, you haven't really from Fisher-Davis and Studi and even Lawrence in the last couple games, but I wouldn't say he struggled. But guys, you need a type of performance from a guard like that. I don't know about 33 points, but I feel like you need a 4, 5, 6 3-point outing from a Studi or a Thomas to put you over the edge in this game, because this is going to be physical. It's going to be emotional. It's going to get chippy, and the home crowd is going to play an advantage, but you still got to execute. You still have to execute in this game. So I guess we could do predictions here. I know we got to get to Byrum's betting corner. I know it might be a little early. I think Vanderbilt wins, guys. I would hammer Vanderbilt on the spread, whatever it is. I think Vandy wins. I think they're playing better than any team in the country right now. And, they've gotten praise. There was an article out from I think a writer. He puts out a weekly post. I forget his last name, but he was touting Vanderbilt as one of the hottest teams in the country. And there aren't a ton of people doing that. They're just kind of paying their respect. They're saying, oh, not cute little 4-game win streak. But guys, the way Vandy's playing right now, if they play up to this level, they're almost unbeatable. I mean, other than maybe the top 5-10 teams in the country, if they play really well, but an Auburn team who's a borderline top 25 team, I think Vanderbilt wins the game. I just, the way they're playing right now, there's not many holes right now. Now the holes are maybe defensively. Jordan Wright needs to step up. Tyron Lawrence needs to play at a little bit higher level, at least in the last 2 games. But guys, there's the room for error is not as small. Like the margin for error, we talk about that a lot in football. And because the margin for error has always been small, seemingly, for Vanderbilt football, not really in basketball. Now, up to this point, we said there's a small margin for error, but I don't know if it's that small anymore because you've got depth pieces there. So, guys, I think it's a big win for Vanderbilt. I think the crowd really pulls them through, and I've got Vandy beating Auburn. I think they match up well with them. Auburn doesn't have a big man that scares me. I think Liam Robbins looks at Auburn and says, I can put some work in against this Auburn team. I mean, Trevor, it feels like a game where Liam Robbins basically says, I can keep doing the same thing I've been doing.
I didn't want to say it, Billy, but I think you're onto something. I think this is the Liam Robbins, as if he hasn't already had a coming out party. I think this is. I think he puts on a show. As for my also, good God, if Vanderbilt can play just decent basketball, but Miles Studi gets hot,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God! If Miles Studi can can shoot like we're used to seeing, oh my God! I don't
Scary.
want to say Vanderbilt would boat race them, but I think if Vanderbilt plays really clean basketball and sort of limits fast break opportunities and just plays good transition basketball, I think this Auburn team is in for a rude awakening. Now, as for my prediction,
Here we go.
if you are not watching this, if you're just listening in an audio format, I'm winking right now. Wink, wink. I'm winking. I think Vanderbilt loses a squeaker. Wink, wink. For some reason, I have not predicted. I will say I predicted them to win the South Carolina game. I don't think they needed much luck to beat South Carolina. Just is what it is.
No wink.
There was no wink on that. But I think Vanderbilt loses a squeaker. Wink, wink. I think Miles Studi shoots very poorly. Wink, wink. I think Jordan Wright has his worst game of the season. Wink, wink. So I'll have Vanderbilt losing in a squeaker. But before we get to Byram's betting corner.
Wait, we got to get Will's pick too.
Oh God, yeah. Go ahead, Will. Go ahead, Will.
Do the reverse jinx.
We got to get to my
too.
pick. The reverse jinx. So I've discussed this before. It only works for me when I've truly lost hope.
Packed it
in whatever is going on. Like if I have to truly in my gut, like if I just tweet out something like Trey Thomas sucks, why is he on the court? And I'm doing it, and in my heart of hearts, I know it's for the jinx. It's not going to work. It's when I lose complete faith and hope that the universe is like, we're gonna get you. So I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. So I've worn the same. So I got thrown a shirt during the Alabama game that Vanderbilt lost in Memorial Gym. I got tossed a Vanderbilt basketball shirt with the new logo, and I got it. Thank you, Vanderbilt cheerleader who tossed it to me. But I've worn that shirt. Started during the Ole Miss game. I've worn it the last 4 games. Now I can't wash it. Because I'm not superstitious. I am a little stitious. So I'll be wearing that shirt that has not been washed in 2.5 weeks. I'll be wearing that shirt in Memorial against Auburn because I can't risk it. So I've got Vanderbilt winning this one. I think the momentum carries over. I'm just going to come out and say it. Jordan Wright is going to have his game. Jordan Wright is going to have his game. Studi is going to knock down some shots. Studi or Thomas, one of those two guys is going to be on. And because I believe this, Vanderbilt's going to get the shit kicked out of them. So just everybody out there listening, I'm sorry, but I truly am ready to get hurt again. I'm excited about this team. I'm excited about the direction they're heading this season. And I absolutely hate that those words are coming out of my mouth after where I was 2 weeks ago, because I had truly lost hope in this team turning it around this season. I came on and I was in despair. My heart was shattered. My hope in a bright future for Vanderbilt basketball in general was completely crushed. And of course, they went 4 in a row right after that. The world is ending. UFOs and aliens are coming down because Vanderbilt's won 4 SEC games in a row for the first time in 6 years. But I think it becomes 5, and the aliens and UFOs continue to invade the United States, and China continues to send over spy balloons, and Vanderbilt wins its 5th SEC game in a row.
Also,
I tell you what, guys.
Go ahead.
Will, where are you sitting in Memorial?
For which game? For the Alabama game or for this Auburn game?
For this Auburn game.
I'll be in the second tier, so I think I'll be in 2L.
I'm in 2L as well.
Jacob Scholl has my ticket, so
guys, whoever is sitting in 2L, Will wearing a shirt that has not been washed in 2 weeks to go and bake in a 99-degree Memorial Gymnasium might be considered an act of terrorism. So
You think I smell that,
you're
Trevor? It doesn't
sitting-
smell bad. I lotion up. I'm a Bath and Body Works
You better
lotion
put
type
some-
of guy.
You better put some deodorant on.
I'm very
Hey.
smell sensitive here,
Hey,
so don't worry about that.
plug-
It just might look a little
Plug
wrinkled
them
and
nose,
dingy.
baby, because it's going to be worth for a Vanderbilt win.
Well, I do hate to say it though. I say that it's just coming back. I had COVID. I don't even know, but I lost my sense of smell. So I've had like no sense of smell over like the last month. It's coming back slowly. But that shirt,
so you're
as of
straight.
right now,
You're
is
good.
fine,
You're good.
scent wise. So I do apologize if I go into that gym and anyone sitting on the other side of me has to smell me. But it's all for a victory. It's all for a good cause. So
Hey, if anybody shames you, they can shove it.
I've got a message for Vanderbilt fans, and I think both you guys do as well. There's no excuse not to show up. There really isn't. You've seen
Besides
tweets from
ticket
Mario
prices.
Moore. Yeah. You've seen a tweet from Riley LaChance. He said, I'm for sure pulling up for this one. Didn't even know he was in town, but he's coming. And guys, if you're a Vanderbilt fan right now, you finally have something to jump on board that is a fun, entertaining product. This is it right now. This is a fun team to watch. We haven't been able to say that in a long time. I think down the stretch last year, they got fun to watch. But I think right now, the way this team is playing, why would you not? What's the excuse not to show up to Memorial? I know there might be fans in Arlington, but most Vanderbilt fans are still in town this weekend. It's a 7:30 night tip-off at Memorial Gym, the first Saturday night home game of the season. They haven't had a Saturday night home game yet. They had that Arkansas game. That was an early afternoon tip. They've had some other Saturday games, but they've been earlier. Memorial on a Saturday night is different. It just is. It hits a little bit different. Feels like the magic in the air is stronger. And Vanderbilt, this team needs the fans right now. They're executing at a high level. They're playing at a high level. They've went on the road and won games. But against this Auburn team, the fans have to show up and be that sixth man. And so there is absolutely no excuse. If you're able to find a ticket, secure that ticket. If you have to buy one, take the pill, suffer the financial loss. It's going to be worth it because I think Vanderbilt wins this game, not knock on wood. But guys, there is absolutely no excuse for a Vanderbilt fan to sit at home and watch this game on TV. I don't care if it's cold outside. We had a tweet come in. They tagged us. They said, forget who this was. I want to see coats lined up in front of the student section like the old days because it was so hot in the gym. You got to take your coat off, but it's cold outside. But you want to feel good in the gym. That's
Vandy Import.
That's the type
Vandy
of
Twitter legend.
Memorial Gym that has to show up. Memorial Magic will show up. I have confidence. But any fan thinking, do I need to show up? Do they need me? They do. This team needs you, so you better show up because if you don't, you might be regretting it. And there's been fans like me and my brother and I, we didn't show up to the Tennessee game. We regretted the hell out of that. We said, man, how did we not show up to this game? But I'm convinced now this team, they're excited about it. You saw the Ezra tweet. He said, we got a game Saturday night. If you didn't know, we need everybody out there. If you're a Vanderbilt fan wondering what to do Saturday night, go to Memorial Gym or go outside and just, if you don't have a ticket, hang out and just be around the gym because it's going to be fun. It's going to be, I can't wait, guys. This is going to be old style Memorial Gym loud.
Look, I've come on here and Trevor, you have, Billy, we have ripped Jerry Stackhouse and ripped this program. And we said, and
honestly, I want to say I'm sorry too. Like I apologize to Stackhouse and the team. I don't think we went too far because we're compassionate, that we're a compassionate group of fans. But I want to apologize formally because I think, not saying we went too far, but we just, we care at a certain level. So I do want to say that as well, Will.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to apologize. I was just going to say I was wrong. Like, I still stand behind the take I had at that point. But I think the most important thing is being able to look in the mirror and say, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. And so I said going into this that if they come through and they win 4 games in a row, that Auburn game, I will be there and it will be electric. And I can promise you the first part of that equation is I will be there. And we are having a tailgate as well starting at noon. I don't
Boom.
exactly know where the location is, but it's on my Twitter somewhere out there. But this game has the potential to feel like the old Memorial. And I'm going to do my part. Billy, I know you're going to do your part. Trevor, you're going to do your part. We could not have been on a more anti-Jerry Stackhouse tangent than we were 2 weeks ago. They've done their part. They have won games. Now it is time for fans to do their job and support a team that is winning, because that's what we always say. We always support. I watch every single game. Even if I don't attend, I'm watching it. Okay, and I'm supporting the program. But the casual fans, the people that are kind of on the fence about whether or not, they're more football or baseball fans, this is a game. Bring a friend, bring somebody to, because this is going to be a memorable experience at 7:30 p.m. tip inside a Memorial Saturday night. Bruce Pearl coming in. I mean, this has every single thing you can want on a script for a hell of a night inside a Memorial. So I am fired up. I will be inside. Billy, you'll be there. Trevor, you will be there. And anyone listening to this, you better be there as well.
Trevor, what are your plans for Saturday night?
Guys,
fire and brimstone.
First off, before I give my plans, I would also like to hop on the train and say I was wrong. I said Vanderbilt basketball was dead. I tweeted, I hope they lose every game badly so that Jerry would be gone. Guys, I didn't mean it. Maybe a little bit, but listen, it was for the love of this school that I didn't even attend. I went to Austin P. I couldn't get into Vanderbilt. But guys, I'm back. I was wrong. I'm eating crow about Jerry. And you know what? It tastes delicious. I love it. Jerry, keep proving me wrong. Vanderbilt basketball, keep proving me wrong. But guys, I asked my mom. So my mom and dad's first ever date, very first ever date they went on. My dad took my mom to a Vanderbilt basketball game.
Hell of a date.
Well, it's amazing she even married the guy after this being their first date. Crazy first date.
I've been
to a Vanderbilt
sporting events with three significant others, and we have not made it many months after their first time attending a game with me, because I don't want to be around. So
they've got three kids and they love each other a lot now. So I don't know
if you can't handle me at my worst during a Vanderbilt basketball game, you don't deserve me at my best.
That's one rule. Never take a female to a Vanderbilt sporting event.
Well, by God, my father did for the first ever date.
I love him for that.
And I remember I asked my mom recently, I was like, Mom, why don't you go to Vanderbilt basketball games anymore? And she's like, well, it just gets too loud. I get a headache. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, are you serious? And her eyes got so big, and she's like, my mom hasn't been in decades. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, what do you mean it gets so loud you get a headache? And she's like, is it not like that anymore? And my mom and dad sat me down and they said, son, in the 90s and in the early 2000s,
it was different.
My mom said you could not hear yourself think. My mother stopped going to Vanderbilt basketball games because Memorial Gym got so loud that she got chronic migraines. That is what Memorial Gym used to be, guys. And here's the thing. If you're listening, Memorial Gym can still be that. Yep. That is the beautiful thing about Vandy basketball and Memorial. Is there's still that Memorial magic. There's still the Memorial Maniacs. And guys, it can happen again this Saturday. All those stories that you heard from your parents and your grandparents about whenever Florida or Tennessee would come to town and students would be banging on the court. Guys, it can happen again this Saturday. And I know if you're listening to this or you're watching this, you're a diehard Vanderbilt fan. You remember Bruce Pearl in those awful orange jackets, just sauntering around Memorial Gym. He's coming to town Saturday, baby. It's not the Vols, but he's still in orange. And guess what? Vanderbilt has a chance this Saturday to drag their nuts up and down the court and make their march into March. And they need you in the stands. They need you being loud. I gave up on this team. And last week, I looked in the mirror and said, baby, I'm back. And I bought 2 tickets for me and my dad to Memorial Gym, 7:30 tip-off Central Standard Time. If you're not there, you're a fraud! And I need you to go to Memorial Gym!
I can't hear him anymore.
Trevor, you've broken
We lost
your mic.
We lost
You've
your audio.
overloaded the mic.
He doesn't
You're
even
gonna need
have
the video version of that to really get the true energy. His microphone could not handle.
That's the thing. He doesn't even have a mic though. That's the thing.
That's why.
So I think he might have
the sound. Yeah, I think
we literally,
because I can't hear him anymore. I think he broke his microphone.
We cannot hear you, Trev. Oh, we lost Trev.
This.
Oh, there we go.
Anchor down and get to Memorial on Saturday. I won't say it again.
Oh man, that's one of the better TDR moments. Trevor breaking his laptop because he doesn't even have a mic. But we got Byrum's betting corner to end the pod. Real quick look at the schedule. Auburn, of course, on Saturday night at LSU, who is an awful team. Florida comes to Memorial next Saturday. Tough to beat a team twice. That's not going to be easy. At Kentucky in Lexington, it's going to be a tough game. And then at home against Mississippi State. That's going to be the game right there. That Mississippi State game at home. Once again, no excuse not to show up to Memorial. We'll close us out with, I know the lines aren't even close to being out, but what do you think the line will be Saturday with Vanderbilt being at home? And tell us about Pickett.
Before we get into my guess of the line, we'll review what I said the line would be for that Florida game. I said 5.5 or 6.5. It was actually more than I expected. The books had Florida as a 9.5 point favorite. So you may be thinking, how can I capitalize on this winning streak that Vanderbilt is currently on? They've upset Tennessee. They've upset Florida. Those 2 games, they were both +3, +4, +500 money line bets. So where can you shop the best lines? Pickett, Pickit. Automatically sync all of your favorite sports books, shop lines, track performances, and explore bets across your community, all within the Pickett app. With Pickett, you can see all your sports bets across your community and all of your accounts in one place. You can track how you're doing, your performance. You can see where the money is coming in, whether it's coming in on Vanderbilt, coming in on the underdog, coming in on the favorite, over or the under. And you can automatically sync up FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Barstool Sportsbook. The list goes on and on. So download the Pickett app from the App Store, Pickit, and use the code TDR. Doesn't matter, capital or lowercase TDR, and you will receive a $3 or $100 Venmo directly into your account after you sync your first sportsbook. So my guess on the line, it hasn't been released yet. I'm sure we'll tweet it out when it comes out, but I think Auburn will probably be a 2.5 point favorite. I think on a neutral site, on the win streak, I wouldn't be shocked if it was a little bit more, but I think sports books are going to be a little bit wary of making Vanderbilt too significant of an underdog play at home on a 4-game winning streak, playing an Auburn team that is not necessarily playing their best basketball season. So I think this line will definitely have value. On the Vanderbilt side, now it's going to be interesting what that over-under is going to be at, because Auburn is a very, very good defensive team. And Vanderbilt, you don't know if they're going to come out and play like they did against Florida and put up almost 90 points, or if they're going to play as they did in the Tennessee game. And granted, Tennessee is a great defensive team, but so is Auburn. And they won that game 66-65. So I think that is going to also be an interesting line to watch, to see where that over-under lands. They might, put it in a safe spot at like 132.5, 134.5. But that's going to be telling as to how Vegas expects the flow of this game and what tempo it's going to be played at. So immediately when that's released, we will definitely be tweeting out and discussing that Florida Vanderbilt line.
Of course we will. And I have a feeling that Vanderbilt, there's going to be a lot of money on Vanderbilt on their side, at least on the spread, maybe not money line, but on that spread, especially if it's a little bit higher, if it's around that 4, 5, 6 range in favor of Auburn, there's going to be some money on Vanderbilt.
That's why I don't think I would be really surprised if I think 5. It'll be under a 5-point line. I think it'll be somewhere between 1.5 to 5 that Auburn will be favored, because once you get up in that 5.5, 6.5, 7.5 point range, you're starting to hit that very appealing, plus 250, plus 220, plus 300 type money line. That's going to get a little bit too much money on the Vanderbilt side for the books to be comfortable. So I think you'll probably see it stick at that 3.5, 4.5, but I've been very wrong. Basketball is a lot harder to predict than football is, because the books are just kind of everywhere and very momentum based as well.
Looking forward to the theme as well. There's got to be a theme on Saturday night. I don't know if they're going to do the Monster or whatever, the Rockstar Energy and the espresso shots again, but there's going to be a theme.
No,
and student.
The vibe is violence. That's the vibe on Saturday. The vibe is piss and vinegar on Saturday. The vibe is snot coming out your nose, Brian Dawkins type beat, crying blood. That's the vibe on Saturday.
They need to hand out the containers of smelling salts to the
They need to hand out those bath salts to turn people into zombies. That's what I need.
That's the energy drink coffee Rockstar promotion was one of my favorites that Vanderbilt has
I never
done.
thought
That
Vanderbilt
was
would do
creative.
anything like that. Yeah, I never
shout
thought.
out to the marketing department recently. They've been doing a much more creative job. We haven't even talked about the groundbreaking really and the live webcam for the football stadium and facilities either. That's off topic, but that's kind of flown under all the chaos within this basketball season.
It's amazing. We've had too much basketball to talk about. I mean, it's amazing how much the tide has turned, and Vanderbilt has a golden opportunity Saturday night. Vanderbilt welcoming in the Auburn Tigers and Bruce Pearl, 7:30 tip. Get there early. There's going to be some traffic. There's going to be some Auburn fans showing up as well. Mike Rooney was on the pod yesterday. We'll get more into baseball probably next week. We'll definitely recap the weekend in Arlington. Of course, they've got a bunch of Big 12 teams on tap this weekend, and Vanderbilt's got Auburn on tap on Saturday night. So you've been listening courtesy of Trevor Hulan, Will Byrum. I'm Billy Derrick. Thanks for tuning in. See y'all at Memorial Saturday night. You've been listening to another episode of The Door Report, powered by Alaco Fine Wood Floors.